Many people talk about the ups and downs of married life, but no one really prepares you for life after your spouse passes away. Welcome to Widowhood Real Talk with Tina, a safe place for widows, widowers, and their friends and family to talk about love and loss. Find comfort as you listen to honest conversations between Tina and invited guests who've experienced the loss of their forever partner. Share their stories of love, grief, and healing. You are not alone in this journey. Join today's episode and discover a wealth of resources and learn how to connect with others who are traveling the same path. This is Widowhood Real Talk with Tina.
Hello, Widowhood. Our conversation with Addie Green is going to be the first of this mini-series that we are doing called Voices of Widowhood, Healing Through the Holidays. The holidays brings a different jam to grief, and I want you to know that we're thinking about you. This conversation with Addie is going to be a great foundation going into the holidays, giving you the opportunity to think about tapping into yourself, focusing on your own breath, and hopes and dreams that you will have for your life as you go through this transition. Let's get into this conversation. Hello, Addie. Welcome to the Widowhood.
Hi, Tina.
Thank you for not saying, "Ooh, thank you," because so many people will go like, "Well, thank you." And I'm like, what do that mean? Like, when you hear me saying, "Welcome to the Widowhood," what does that mean? Yeah, what does that mean to you and why?
I'm not sure that that's a warm welcome. So it means welcome to the club that nobody wants to be a part of course. So just hi. Welcome to you as well.
And so thank you for that, because you being a widow, hearing welcome to the widowhood, to me would just go over everything you've experienced in life to now. I know she's saying welcome to the podcast, but when you hear welcome to the widowhood, it's like, no, and please take that back, maybe.
Yeah, it's definitely a reminder of the fact that, oh, shoot, like I am here in this. Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I want to say thank you for being the first conversation in this mini series that we're having, Voices of Widowhood, Healing Through the Holidays. And I invited you to have this first conversation intentionally. One, this is a road that you are familiar with. And two, your professional experience and knowledge that you had is something that can leverage and support the community. It may have not been the first thing you could think of when you're having your own experience, but where you're at now in this journey, supporting people, and I'll just say between the breath work, between the knowledge you have with astrology, being able to draw people into their body and movement, and also to the ability to journal. Those are all of the things that I thought would be an extremely good foundation to have going into the crappy holiday season to try to ground yourself and prepare yourself. And hopefully we get to cover all of those, but those are things that I want the listeners in this conversation to go, Addie is a great resource and has so much knowledge. How can they contact you? How can they reach out to you? How can they schedule time to learn from you?
Sure. So I am available on all social media platforms. My handle is at slowflowologist. And that's simply because I was and am a sensual movement teacher first. This widowhood slapped me in the face and sort of changed the trajectory of my life and what I was doing, and how that was going. Also, I have a virtual studio online. It's Patreon and at Sensual Movement. And so you're welcome to find me over there. It is a growing and budding community of women interested in sensual movement and breath work outside of my offerings on YouTube. I'm on YouTube as well, Sensual Movement Lab. So it's all the same. And yeah, if anybody is interested in contacting me for astrology consultations, I am able to dig into your birth chart. And what I like to do is kind of a personality analysis. I like to validate a person's experience in life, as well as sort of let people know that they're on the right path and that they're tracking in life, and that their lives has been shaped by hands that are bigger than their own. And so if you're interested in something like that or finding out more about that, it's Addie Green Astrology at Gmail.
Thank you. And all of that will be in the show notes below. I want to talk about, I'm going to go with the astrology, because the reason why I'm going to pick that, a lot of times people go, that's a lot of woo, woo, woo. There's a lot of, well, my faith and what that looks like, there's some contradiction with that. This is not a thing where you're going to take your palm and read this and the chair is going to start levitating, the table and things are going to start moving, and you're going to start giving you stuff. That's not what this is. It took me a while to go, okay, literally in a layman's term, and you're going to do it better than this. You wanted to know where I was born. And then you took those facts based on where the stars, the moons, the planets were located, and then gave me information based on that particular time. And I was not aware, and we didn't talk a lot about my childhood and other different things and some of my formative years, but the information that you gave was aligning with that. This is not to say this is what you are. When your spouse has died, everything feels off-centered. You wonder who you are as a person. And I found it very insightful what you did with the birth chart and to be able to share that information. I mean, when you look at the Bible and other different faiths, there are things that they're using the stars and moons to guide them with and do. You're not heavily leaning on that. So there's nothing particular wrong. It's just something this, I think, has just been woo-wooed out and people are just apprehensive. What would you say to the woo-wooers and help them out with?
For sure. So for me, and, I've always sort of been interested in unconventional and non-traditional things. I mean, I was a pole dance teacher, so that's a very non-traditional form of fitness. However, I am deeply interested in human psychology. I am deeply interested in why people do the things that they do and how they operate. And on top of that, how I operate. I have always been the type of person to journal. So tapping into my own feelings and what's going on in my inner landscape has always been just something that I do. It's the way that I process. And so, we have psychology today that has personality profiles, right? We know if somebody says, oh, that's an alpha person, or you're a type A personality, that these things have their labels. So when I tapped into astrology, it started because of a relationship. And so what I was unaware of was that you can take two people's charts and put them together and get a picture of how these two individuals would relate to one another. And I thought that was so profound because, marriages have their ups and downs. Mine was in a down spiral. And I was, you tap into anything. You want to know if whatever is going on, you're like, okay, I got to figure this out. Right. And so that was sort of my first introduction into this, was doing like a compatibility thing. But what I found about myself after looking up information in regards to my own natal chart and then having it read by a professional was that everything about me things that I have never shared with anyone else, things that only I know that I experience, this person was able to validate those things. Not like a psychic. They don't know me. I don't know you like that. But astrology is a science. And so, of course, there's a lot of discourse around religious context, and I stay away from that. I come to astrology through a psychological lens. I like to validate a person's experience and their being. If you were sitting down with someone to explain about your personality, you would go through a list of questions that would end up giving you a profile as to what your personality is like. And so I think it takes a special type of person who is able to read that through the signs and symbols in the sky. And also, a lot of the things and the ways that our Earth operates are based on astronomy, which astronomy and astrology went hand in hand a long time ago. Medical doctors used to have a very depth of knowledge about astrology a long time ago, because these were things that were really important for the whole being. So yes, people say I'm a Capricorn, I'm a Scorpio, I'm a Libra, and we've had pop astrology is what it would be called, a more modern day astrology where, you go look for your horoscope in the back of the magazine and maybe it matches and maybe it doesn't. And so this isn't that. This is, like you said, a very detailed and full layout of exactly where planetary placements were. And that's really important because in ancient times, they did rely on the positions and placements of the stars, of the sun, and of the moon. We get our calendar year based off of, how the earth travels the sun. We get a month based off of the moon's progression around the earth. So all of these things, they line up. So I don't come through astrology from a lens of, predictive astrology. There is predictive astrology, and I potentially am able to see some things that may be coming up for you, but I don't necessarily dig into predictive astrology. I like for people to be able to understand themselves and to be able to have a validated experience of why they are the way that they are, how they are the way that they are, and know that things that have happened in their lives, no matter how awful they might be, are all leading toward the purpose and destiny of a person's life. And we all have a very unique destiny to fulfill. And most people know that, right? Like, no two people's destinies are the same, which is why two people can be born on the same day. But if you're born at different times in different locations on Earth, it changes the aspects that the planets make to one another, which essentially gives you a completely different life than someone else.
For the widows that you've worked, how has this helped impact their grief journey?
I think that it puts into perspective a little bit the fact that, wow, like maybe there is a destiny, or, maybe things are supposed to happen the way that they are. Or I think the biggest thing is timing. Astrology is like a clock, right? There's a timing. There's a time and place under the sun for everything. And so we know mentally in our minds that people die. People are going to die. We are all going to die. I'm going to have my day. You're going to have your day. But I think that when we're able to sort of scale back and see from a bird's eye view or from a bigger picture, I think that it gives and brings a little bit of comfort. It's brought comfort to the fact that, wow, this is the timing and the season of my life that I am in. And in this season, I had a significant loss. And then we're able to see how we get back on track from here. Where does it go up from here?
Thank you. And in the idea of where do we go from here, I would like to go into your book. Want to tell us about this and how this came about and why this would be important in this journey?
Absolutely. So the book that you have in your hands is The Breath Initiative, Where Breath and Healing Collide. And I think inspiration behind that was that people are stressed, people are sick, people are suffering from anxiety, people are suffering from depression. And especially myself being a Black woman, Black women especially at higher rates than anybody else. People think that breath work and maybe yoga and, these things, again, along with astrology, they come off as woo-woo. So leave it to me to always be the one that's like into something else. But I do believe, and per my birth chart, right, I am here to introduce people to things. The same with sensual movement and pole dance. A lot of times a person's first experience of an alternative experience has been through me, the people that I've worked with. And so the book came about because I wanted to be able to create something that put these breathwork sessions that I do on Patreon, or that, I do in the community, or that I would do on TikTok, and bring it into a tangible format, something that someone can have with them and take with them at any time, flip to any page, and have basically like a personal breathwork teacher and session right there in front of them whenever they needed it. So the way that it's laid out is it has 12 different breathwork techniques in it, and each of them is made so that you do it over a 12-week course of time, but you can also just open it up and flip to whatever technique it opens on and use it like that as well. And so they're not progressive. It isn't, one that follows the other or anything like that. They're all different techniques. And the thing is, there's so many different forms of breath work. Breath work is an umbrella term for a lot of different types of breathing techniques and styles. And so in here, I just introduce you to a bunch of different techniques, explain a bit about them, teach you how to check in and do a body scan and learn how to sit with yourself and sit with your breath. It's instructional in how to do the breath. And then there are blank pages for you to go in and do your reflections and your journals in the back of those.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions I want to ask you.
Sure.
Somebody may be saying, I'm breathing all the time. I'm alive. I'm sitting here. I'm breathing. Why is breath work important? What does that give me that just breathing regularly does not provide?
Breathing is one of the only functions in the body that is automatic and that we can also control. And so, yes, we are breathing all the time, but our breath is literally the essential life force that is flowing through our body. It's the first thing we do when we enter the world that animates us and brings us to life and makes us alive. And it's the last thing that we do and exhale before it's over and not one inhale comes back through. So breath is life. The average person is not breathing at full capacity. No one's really breathing at full capacity. But our breath is like an indicator to what's really going on in the body. So what happens is things like stress, things like anxiety, things like trauma, things like grief, all of these external experiences that cause these feelings and emotional states within us, they shift and change our breath. For example, if you stood up and you did 10 jumping jacks right now, when you sat back down, what's your breath going to do?
Trying to catch yourself. Girl, I'm in perfect shape. It's not going to be any different.
Trying to catch itself, right? When you're crying, what is your breath doing?
That shallow, hyperventilating sort of.
When you're sleeping, what is your breath doing?
Relax.
When we're sleeping, we are in a state of restoration. When we're sleeping, that's when the body is able to go to work and our cells do what they do and our tissues are able to be restored and this recharging moment for the body. And in that most natural space, your breath is slow, it's steady, it's even, it's regulated. Someone on life support connected to a machine, that machine is giving rhythmic, steady intervals of breath to keep you alive. So the average person is breathing probably about 15 to 20 breaths a minute. When you get over 22 breaths a minute, you are actually in a state of mild hyperventilation. We know that obviously hyperventilating is not good for the body. When we are breathing too quickly, too rapid, too shallow, it actually sends the message to our brain and to our body that we are in a state of distress. What happens when you get scared? You get that feeling and then all of a sudden your breath is peaked and that's an emergency state for the body. It's sending the signal that you are stressed, and then your body releases cortisol and stress hormones and it puts you in fight flight. Trauma puts you in fight flight, right? So yes, we breathe every day. Yes, we take 60,000 probably breaths per day, 20,000 breaths a day. But how many of those breaths are conscious? And so conscious, intentional breathing has the ability to restore the nervous system, to restore the body. It sends larger amounts of fresh, clean oxygen into the body. And a fully oxygenated body, disease cannot thrive in. There are new, and maybe they're new as far as technology is, but I think it really is taking ancient things and modernizing them. I believe they're like hyperbaric chambers that people who are having different health issues, to include cancer, can sit in these chambers and breathe this 100% oxygen for X amount of time, and it's healing the body. They're breathing oxygen. And so your breath, you have access to, it's probably one of the biggest and number one healing tools that you have at your disposal all the time, that is available and accessible to you all the time. But for the most part, most people are breathing shallow. If you're stressed, you're already not taking full breaths, because honestly, take a deep breath with me right now, Tina. I'm gonna have you breathe in. Sit up straight. I'm gonna have you breathe in really deep. And just hold it for a moment and then let it go. There's something in the inhale, and then there's also this feeling in the exhale that feels really good. It feels really relaxing. It feels really restorative. You're not doing that like that all day, every day. And so that's what makes the breath one of the most potent things that we can do for ourselves, because it brings the body, it balances the nervous system. Deep breathing activates the parasympathetic nervous system. So when we're constantly up here in stress and struggling and tired and frustrated, or in these feelings that shallow our breath, we can balance that out and create homeostasis in the body. And in doing that, obviously, it would keep us at a more healthy place.
Thank you. Going into the holidays, dealing with profound grief, this is very important to consider how you're going to make it through the holidays. Breath work, sounds like you can do that anywhere. It doesn't have to just be in a studio doing yoga. I'm having a triggering grief moment. I can implement breath work to help me. Is that true? Or
Absolutely. And so the funny thing is it's like, we see so many things. Like if you go online and you look up breath work, like you're going to see a bunch of different stuff across the board. And I feel like, the internet is beautiful for information, and it's also beautiful for disinformation, right? And so, yes, you don't have to be in a studio. Yoga has introduced breath work into communities and to a lot of people because of pranayama. Pranayama is one of the 8 limbs of yoga, and it is a practice all in its own. But when you are doing yoga, or even Pilates, or really any fitness for that matter, there's proper ways to breathe, right? We should be inhaling when we are opening up and expanding the body as we let breath in. We should be exhaling as we constrict the body, or as we close the body in. And so we learn this, and we learn how to do this intentionally through yoga. But you don't need to be in a studio. You can wake up first thing in the morning and sit right on your bed. You can be in your car. You can be out on a walk. In fact, there are walking meditations that you can do where you're breathing with the steps, that you're taking in rhythm. And so, yes, you do not have to have any type of formal setup to do your breath work. It can be done anywhere, anytime, any place.
I just wanted to touch on a few things in the breath initiative book. Breath initiative. People hear about the 5 stages of grief, and they feel like those are the only things that they're going to experience or feel. In your book here, you talk about the feeling wheel. Can you discuss how that is more expansive and more relative to the things that one may feel dealing with profound grief?
Yeah. So when we think about emotions and feelings, right, we have our core emotions, and then these core emotions will have us feeling a certain way. Grief, just like breath work, is almost an umbrella term. It's like the bigger picture. It could be the core of some of the feelings that we experience. So the wheel will have anger, sadness. It's got those core ones in there. But sometimes we're frustrated. Sometimes we're pissed. Sometimes we're depressed. Sometimes we are just down. Sometimes. And so all of these feelings sort of fall back into one of those categories of those core emotions. And so it's important to be able to identify those things. As a wellness person, and holistic wellness at that, I genuinely believe that when you can name a thing, then you can heal the thing. And so sometimes it's hard to name the thing. So I think the feelings wheel, it gives us this opportunity to be able to name the thing, to sort of take a feeling that we're having and really pull it into the core emotion of what that is, so that we can begin to kind of dissect what it is, why it is, And even then from there, why that's important in the breath initiative is because now we can take that and see maybe what style of breath work we want to do to tend to that emotional feeling.
Thank you. In your explanation of that, I can see there's a self tracker here.
Yes.
This self tracker I found can be a very powerful tool because when you're dealing with profound grief, you feel like time is standing still, like you haven't made any improvements, you haven't done anything. Things 6 months are exactly the way that they were the year or moment that your spouse or your loved one passed. Having a self tracker helps you see the truth. What would you say to that?
Absolutely. I initially started, and the whole reason I put that in there is for exactly what you just said. I think that, and sometimes not everybody's ready to take healing into their own hands, right? Because the Breath Initiative is a self-paced thing. There's a willingness there, right? Like I did my part. I made the journal. I put everything in it and I gave you all the tools, right? But then there's also has to be this willingness from you or from the reader to do the thing. And so I used to bullet journal, and there's lots of different layouts on Pinterest for bullet journals and different types of spreads that you can put into your bullet journal. And one of the spreads that I really used to enjoy was the habit tracker. And so you can make a habit tracker for anything. I would make my habit tracker for making my bed in the morning. I would make my habit tracker for drinking water, at least, 8 cups of water a day. A habit tracker for taking a daily walk, right? But what you find about the habit tracker is how much effort I think that you are actually putting into things. Those trackers give us a very deep insight into the patterns of how we move through things. I would say for me, and full moment of transparency here, like there's times you get really excited when you start something new. You start something new and you go full steam ahead and you're doing good and you're filling in your tracker and it's looking great. And then oops, you go back and you're like, I fell off, which is fine. You can get right back on. And so the tracker, it's there to just kind of be an aid and a guide. How often are you participating in your healing?
That is good. You mentioned the body scan. Can you elaborate a little bit more? I know there's a lot of pages dedicated to that, but the benefit for the listener.
So a body scan, in my opinion, is one of the most important things that you can learn when it comes to any type of breathing or even movement modality for that matter. And so a body scan is where we stop, we take an intentional pause, and we are checking in with the body. We're checking in with the self. This is both the outer, the physical body. This is also the inside man or the inward body. So doing that, it does 2 things. One, we can identify potentially where we have aches and pains. We can identify where stress, where grief, where sorrow, where anxiety exists in our body. Because it exists in places. And when you stop to really check in, you start to recognize where these places are. Some people have really great natural intuition. Body scans kind of help you to build that bodily intuition. So we sit, we close our eyes. Closing the eyes or blocking out one of the senses just makes it a little bit easier to tune into the task at hand. And then we focus. So we're honing in. And so with a body scan, you can start anywhere, but traditionally I start at the top of the head with a body scan, and we're checking in with the head. We're checking in with our thoughts. We're checking in this space right here that, anytime something happens and you're like, huh? Or what? We get that little furrow or wrinkle in the middle of our forehead. I'm infamous for that. I was telling my kids the other day, I have like a permanent line in the middle of my forehead from always being like, but we want to check that space. A lot of times we are moving through the day, and instead of our tongue gently resting at the roof of the mouth, our jaws are clenched. We're tight jawed. sometimes you don't notice that you're sitting with your shoulders actually up like this, as opposed to if I say take a deep breath and relax your shoulders, I guarantee they're able to drop down some. It's like, oh, shoot, my shoulders were way up in my ears. So we're checking in. And we don't have to change things. With a body scan, it's not about necessarily changing anything in the moment, but rather taking the moment to get really present with what is happening and with where you are. And we scan and we do that all the way down. We check in with the heart. We check in with the gut. We check in with, our, we have energy centers in the body, are also called chakras. And so, you want to check in with those. We come into the sacral. We check in with our hips. Maybe you've been sitting all day and not really paying attention to the fact that, wow, like my booty over here is hurting a little bit, but it's important because a lot of times, and especially when we're stressed or when we're going through things, we neglect what the body is trying to say. So a body scan helps you to really tap in and find out what is going on in there. And then, like we already said, when you can name a thing, you can heal a thing. And so, oh, wow, I'm having some stiffness in my back. Well, now you can stretch. Or, oh, wow, my heart really hurts today. Well, now we can do some heart opening, or we can put on some positive songs, or we can do something that feels better to uplift the heart. And so, yes, body scan is one of the most important check-ins that you can essentially know how to do for yourself.
Totally agree. When you are dealing with profound grief, you're just moving, you're trying to survive, you're doing all this. And there are so many statistics, and you are a statistics queen, about people who have lost a loved one and how that impacts their body and the dis-ease or disease that they deal with. And some of these are preventative measures that you can do by yourself to make yourself well. I know a lot of people are struggling financially with insurance and other different things like that. Having a tool, a resource, this book is showing you how you can utilize the things your body was meant to do to make it better. And doing that body scan is checking in. I find that people may be afraid to check in, the silence, the reflective part of life, but there's power in that. And in the interactive healing workbook, I love the artwork here, the flower, the idea that it's important to take that time to sit still for a moment. I want to go over just a few of the journal entries that you have here, and if you would share what comes to mind to you in this version of your life compared to when it was written.
Okay.
Write a letter to your partner expressing all the things you wish you could still share with them, your hopes, your fears, and everything in between.
I would have so much to say now. I think before, that letter would have come from a place of really deep sadness. And I don't know that I would have had much positive things to say, because there was no clarity. And I can't really even say that today there's still like a whole heck of a lot of clarity. But if I were to write that today, like, I've learned to take time to see what I have done, what has happened, what positive things have changed. And so it would just be different. I would have a lot to say. It would just be a lot to say. Almost 3 years later, there's a lot to say.
Thank you. Week 14, reflect on the most challenging aspects of widowhood so far. What coping strategies have you found helpful during difficult moments?
Before, the most difficult part was trying to actively grieve and be in my feelings and still be a parent and live life. Today, the most challenging part of widowhood is trying to get back on my feet, because I am one of the widows who was pretty dependent on my spouse. I was a stay-at-home mom, and so there's been a difference in trying to develop this new life, at the same time, still maintaining being at home and being a mom, because there's no other parent in the house. So parenting, solo parenting is definitely kind of a challenge. And so what I do is try to take time for myself, whether that is getting up early in the morning. I have been walking for a little over a year now, and I try to make sure that I carve out time to do that at least Monday through Friday, Monday through Saturday. And that little hour and 30 minutes of time, while it's not a lot on a daily basis, it definitely is enough to at least help me get my head right or be in a good space to be able to tackle the day, really. Of course, breathing. And what's really interesting about the breathing is that as a sensual movement teacher, we definitely use breath and movement. They go hand in hand. With sensual movement, because it is about tapping into the senses and about being present and having this awareness of the things that are going on in the body, the breath is usually the catalyst that moves the body in that particular type of dance and movement. And so, I don't really remember what it was that hit me one day. I think I was in the middle of having some type of anxiety situation. And I have never experienced anxiety before my husband passed away. I had never knew what an anxiety attack was. I would get these weird, almost like heart palpitations, and my breath would hitch, and it was almost like I was afraid of something, but nothing was happening to have made me get like that. And I remember feeling like, oh, hell no, like, I don't like this. But I also know that, okay, wait, let me just calm down. And I would say to myself, like, no, just calm down. Like, you're okay, just calm down. And I would do these little breaths with myself. And I think that made me really start to dig in deeper to the idea of breath and how, and, when we change our breath, it is the fastest way to change our emotional state. So I breathe often. I breathe all day. And you breathe all day too, but I take intentional time to breathe all day. Whenever I'm like, and I'll just tap into that. So breath and walking are really big things that I do for myself too.
Walking is good for me. It takes you outside of the environment where the stress may be happening. It allows you to connect with nature. Go that extra step, take out your shoes, be in that grass. And it reflects to think sometimes I walk by a tree that has been there longer than I have and will be, in perspective of life and just all the other pieces. It's insightful to me. Week 51, create a collage, a vision board, or artistic representation of your hopes, dreams, and aspirations for the next chapter of your life as you see it now.
So before, that looked like tragedy over triumph, triumph over tragedy. And it looked like this. You see my bloom flower. And the biggest thing was I did it. It says surviving after the biggest end, purpose found, restore, replenish, and refresh. And there's other stuff on there, but the biggest thing was getting through. And so, yes, grief doesn't necessarily leave us. We'll sway in and out probably forever. But it was really important, to get through, I think, that first initial moment. And so if I had to vision board or, write down things for now, it's about seeking happiness. And honestly, like, the big thing for me is mastering peace. Loss can disrupt so many things. And as a snowball effect, it's my peace that has taken the bit. I don't care about anything else. Yes, this happened, like all the things, but I know that loss also puts things into a really different perspective for a lot of people. It shifts how we think about things. It shifts, our desires, what we want. There are some people who completely just get rid of all of their things. There's people who move out of the country. There's people who go and, things happen. And for me, I want peace. I think that my peace is one of the most important things that I can have and that I can hold. That's really important, because if you don't have no peace, it doesn't matter everything else you're doing. What are you doing it for?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you, Addie. You have given this community a good foundation and start to deal with the holidays and things that are coming on. I do want to ask one other question, because you mentioned the word or a term a couple of times. When somebody's like, my spouse is dead, and you talking about sensual movement, do tell. You knew that's where I was coming, didn't you? I mean, because they're like, why would I want to have sensual movement? How is that going to help me? They're not here. The person I would give that to. Why?
So one of the things that has always been a really foundational part of pole dance, sensual movement, and really any type of like sultry dance in general, actually. One, dance is a healing agent, right? It is a movement. From ballet to tap dance to hip hop to contemporary dance to salsa, dance moves energy. Dance lifts your vibrations. You don't get done dancing and feel depleted. You might feel tired and out of breath, but it's not a depletion. And so in class, we don't do anything for the male gaze. I don't care if you have a boyfriend, if you have a husband, if you have a wife, if you have a girlfriend. I don't care. It's not about the gaze of another person. For someone else to witness you in your sensual dance, that's a privilege. It's a privilege. And so what we learn is that, what do we enjoy? Sensual movement is about what is going on in your own body, which is why no two people's dance ever really looks the same. So we pulled different modalities, right? There's a lot of mat work involved. We take that from traditional mat Pilates. We take that from yoga. We take that from traditional fitness. These are all of the things that we do to make the body strong. But when it comes to tapping into that sensual side or the feminine side, it's really more about shutting out what's going on out here and finding out what it is in here. How does my fingertips feel underneath the skin of my arm versus what does my arm feel like to my fingertips? It's about the self. It's not about anyone else. And so, yeah, it feels good and it feels fun and it feels, nice to learn how to move and, have this sort of fun, flirty, sensual side. But most of it is really just about body awareness and tapping into your own self. And so I think that's important in a healing journey in general, because we restore parts of ourselves that have been lost through this movement. We restore the parts of ourselves that may have been hidden or that have been dormant. They come up. And so it creates a new confidence in a person. And that's really important especially when you've lost a spouse, for women specifically who have lost a spouse, and you lose that sense of confidence and you lose that sense of body awareness and you stop wearing things that look good and feel good on you and you cover yourself up and you stop feeling good about yourself. And so there's so many layers, but if I had to say it for grief specifically, and how a widow could benefit from a sensual movement, it would simply just be, you get to learn yourself again through a fun way that will, help to keep you fit and, teach you how to.
Okay. I will say the goddess movement in the morning to wake up, it just makes you feel very powerful. It's like doing the superwoman thing. And when you do that in the morning, it has that same type of feel. Addie, thank you so much for this conversation. I'm going to say something to our listeners, and then I would like for you to wrap it up. Maybe there's something we didn't cover that you feel like we should have shared, how they can connect with you again, and anything else. Thank you for trusting me to hold a safe space for you. This mini series of Voices of Widowhood Healing Through the Holidays is especially for you. The holidays brings a different feel to grief, and I want you to be equipped. Connecting with the mental health, the grief advocates, people that are in this healing space is what you'll find during this series. And I am so honored to be able to start it with Addie. and give you some foundational things to help you during this process. Thank you. I am sorry for the person that you have that is no longer here, but I'm grateful for you finding us. And please reach out.
So I will close us with a couple of things. You mentioned the Breath Initiative book, and so I do want to share for those that are grieving through the holidays, there is another book. It is the Breath Initiative, and this is an invitation to breathe through grief. And so this one is very specifically geared towards grief. It is a journal as well as a book. It's got, I think, 6 different breath exercises in it, and these are all for the different type of emotions that grief can evoke. So I tell a little bit of my own personal story in the pages of this one. So if you are interested in that, both of these items are available on Amazon. And I want to say as well, breathing, of course, it's not going to stop. It's not going to stop the pain. But one of the things that I think is really important to mention and for you to keep in mind is just that, a widow's health declines rapidly, and especially within the first year after losing their partner. It's not fair that we already have the loss and then our own health gets to start tanking with it. So if anything, your breath is a free resource to at least begin to help keep your own wellness intact. It's not going to end anything. Breath is proven to significantly increase our health and reduce stress and reduce anxieties. And so it's free. So definitely give it a try. And we will right now before we leave. We'll sit up nice and tall and straight. And we sit up nice and tall. Now you can lay down and do this. The only thing that you want to keep in mind is that you don't want to be hunched over like this. We have something called a diaphragm underneath our lungs, and it moves up and down like this with every breath that we take. So when we are slouching or when we're hunched over, we're actually crunching the diaphragm, which is a part of the reason why most people are not breathing to the fullness of their capacity is because we don't have good posture. And so we want to sit up nice and tall and straight. And we're just going to go ahead and take 3 deep breaths. One of my favorite breath techniques is coherence breathing. And this is not about trying to really do a bunch of counts and things like that. As beginners, it's important to get as comfortable as possible with simply just being conscious and aware of the breath. So we're going to deep breathe. We're going to take 3 of those breaths. We're going to take them in through the nose, and we're going to take them out also through the nose. And we want to just keep the inhale and the exhale even. You don't have to count, but if you are a counter and if you can handle that, we want to pull that breath in on a count of 4 and exhale it out on a count of 4. There will be no holding of the breath in between. So it's just a nice flow. You can close your eyes if you'd like, or lower your gaze. Make sure your shoulders are down away from the ears. And we'll just slowly pull that breath in. And you can take it slow. Like we're not in a hurry to breathe it in. Breathe out. Fully exhale, breathe in. Breathe out. And one last breath, and we'll consider this a cleansing breath. Pull it in. And we exhale anything that does not feel good in this moment. And thank you for having me.
Thank you for spending another episode with Widowhood Real Talk. If you found the contents of today helpful, share the episode to anyone you know who may need it. Subscribe to the show and tune into Widowhood Real Talk each week. Then, visit widowhood-realtalkwithtina.org to join the community and access additional resources. Remember, you are not alone in this journey.